to Sales TV. Welcome to the Grenville Turnier Studios here at Cranfield University. It's great to be back on the sofa after a couple of weeks, little sabbatical away. I'm joined by Alex Abbott, co-host, and also by Adam, who is remotely here with because he's been doing guitar practice. He's just taken his cap off because we said he looked like a poor relation to Samuel L. Jackson.
Put it back on.
Put it back on. I'm gone. Do the whole Samuel L. Jackson thing.
Yeah.
There we go. Just proving we can appeal to the younger generation. And also, if you notice here, I've got a little bit of stubble, Adam a little bit of a beard, and then a full-on beard here. So it's like the stages of facial hair, which we won't be discussing this morning.
How you doing, Adam? Like maturity, isn't it?
Yes. Obviously, I'm clearly more mature.
Yeah, but that would work in reverse then. Is that a fair thing to say? Just thought I'd get that in before you all took it away from me.
Yeah.
So today, what we're going to be talking about is personal and professional brand. And effectively, if we can just pull the first slide up, please, that would be brilliant. This comes really from, Alex, we were at Sales Innovation Expo last week. Adam was there as well. And I talked on the keynote stage about this.
You did, and you did a great job, I must add.
Thank you. And if we can just keep complimenting me for the next 20, 25 minutes, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah. You did a fantastic job.
Brilliant. Today. Thank you very much indeed.
It was inspirational.
It was. It was almost like Simon Sinek, but not quite as wealthy.
Yeah.
And the reason we want to talk about that today is we've evolved a couple of pieces of thinking from Adam and I kicking this around, which was that there's some scale between clearly salespeople are not that necessarily great at having a professional personal brand as other organizations are and other people are. But then Adam's done this kind of curveball in, which I thought would be great as presenters to kick around today, which is likability.
Okay.
So even like really professional, personal branded people, Adam, you were talking about, they're not necessarily likable. So we'll see in a slide in a minute. There's a scale somewhere to chat about. But what was that curveball you threw?
Well, I think that the challenge is that there's a common ground to be struck, isn't there? So at one end of the scale, you have somebody that's eminently likable but has no professional credibility. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got somebody that's incredibly professional, but you don't really care. And the challenge for salespeople is to kind of move that slider to get a good balance between those two things. Because simply being an expert at something doesn't mean people want to talk to you and listen when you speak. And being likable is not a winning formula unless you're a stand-up comic.
Mm. I mean, take your glasses, for example, Adam. You either love them or hate them, or my beard, for that matter.
I was like you though, which is the likability, the comedian, the stand-up comedian, and that's a really interesting point. Is a lot of people do like to play the likable card too much. And they don't play the professional card that much, and vice versa. Some people actually vastly overplay. Well, I'm a professional. I'm an expert in my field. You use the language, but actually are quite unsavory or difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
And Adam, you and I, when we were talking yesterday, I'll lay it out there that I have on a couple of occasions walked away from a medical engagement with someone because I don't actually think this is about me. I think there's a process here which I understand, but you're not connecting to me in a way that makes me want to keep exploring what I need to do to improve my health, which is a really bad set of circumstances to end up in, really.
Well, and I think salespeople have a greater challenge because typically they have a likability factor.
Yep.
However, trying to portray that on social media before you've had the conversation is actually quite difficult for most salespeople to do, because there's already that authenticity barrier between the buyer and the seller. And so I think the salespeople have to work so much harder when it comes to portraying how authentic they are, how genuine they are, so that the buyer believes that, the audience, not just the buyer, but the audience believes that, and they see them for the trusted advisor they are.
Yeah. I mean, bring the slides back up again. I mean, it's interesting to look at having trouble with the clicker here. That's it. So, I mean, this is a really important piece, and just looking at the words here, what is brand? And this comes from some work that was done in the sort of like early 2000s. And I can't really argue with this. It's, it's your personal brand is a perception or emotion, which is in sales great because 52% of the reason people buy is all about emotion. And it's maintained by somebody other than you. It's not, you can say my brand's great, but unless other people appreciate that and really connect with it, it doesn't count for anything. And it describes the total experience of having a relationship with you. And that's actually really quite succinct. And if you remember last week, we looked at this is the challenge, which is as human beings, you and I and Adam look for, here we've got the accountant, the engineer, doctor, pilot, lawyer, procurement specialist, the scientist and the teacher, and they've all got a very professional way of looking at things and viewing things. And that basically is, firstly, I think twofold, which is, I don't send my kids to a school that I don't think the teachers are professional. I don't have an architect around that I don't think can actually do the job. And I certainly don't get my tax return done by somebody. But if you look at all of those, we buy from those people as human beings. Corporate buyers as individuals buy, but salespeople don't actually align themselves to that level of self-certification and continuous professional development. But they could be really likable.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good point. Sales is an industry that is full of opinion, and actually, like you, I believe there should be different standards that salespeople can aspire to achieve to improve their overall professional brand.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, Adam, we talked about that. That was the start of the debate. Putting those in other people up. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is that when you're in any field at all, every one of your competitors these days is quite literally a click away. And the challenge that this presents is that every person out there appears to be professional, expert, 20 years experience, market leading, all of those words and those platitudes that people use when they're describing themselves in a professional environment. The problem is that you may well have 20 years experience. You may well be an expert. You may well be an author on this topic, but I don't care because I don't know who you are and I don't particularly like you. And the challenge, I think, for salespeople is everybody would acknowledge that that's true. If you had the option to take a prospect into a meeting room and present to them, or take them to the football match for a day, most salespeople would pick the football match because it's a bonding experience and an opportunity to get to know the individual. So most people wouldn't argue with that. The challenge is actioning that in an appropriate way. So still, we see an overwhelming landslide of people that say, my professional brand is the most important thing. This is not a place for me to be myself. This is a place for me to be professional. But without that bedrock and context of me liking you and knowing you and trusting you, everything you say is just words. And what I see when I look out into the digital space is that people are very polarized. I mean, we see that across society as a whole, but people are very polarized. We get people that just talk about their professional stuff. And we also get people that post hundreds of pictures of them trekking in the Rockies and walking their dogs on the beach, which is very nice. But actually, if you're not an explorer or a dog walker, that doesn't tell me anything about what you do. And I think that the challenge for everybody is to project both sides of who they are into the digital space. They have no trouble doing this. And this is the irony. They have no trouble doing this face to face, but they have a huge amount of trouble doing this in the digital space and tempering either ends of that spectrum into something which is blended and shows the complete them. And Alex, you spoke about authenticity. I don't want to know about the fact that you're a sales expert and you help people create conversations unless I also know about the fact that you have got a load of Dachshunds and some lovely children. Because actually, that's part of what gives you context and makes me realize that we're very alike. And that's, I think, the key here. The key is for salespeople to take both sides to market.
Yeah, I'm just going to put Christopher Capon's comment up as a backdrop as we talk about this, because what you're saying is bang on. I don't think anybody would dispute that. But in salespeople are struggling to engage with their audience. I think it's fair to say we now know cold calling or calling, disrupting one's audience, isn't necessarily the best form of communication if you're working on improving your personal brand, what Adam was saying. We know emailing prospects is getting more and more difficult because insight is becoming noise for one's audience, and therefore kind of breaking through that noise is becoming more and more difficult. And so really what we're talking about here is social media and leveraging social media more effectively, and salespeople not just having the confidence to do the things that you're talking about, but practically make some of the changes they need to demonstrate that they are all of those things that you mentioned, Adam, you know, authentic, genuine, and a trusted advisor. And I kind of, if I simplify this, there's two buckets for me. There's that passive social presence. What are the things that you can do to your social profiles? And we can talk about, I think, some of those practical things today. And I know in your presentation, Andy, you touched on, you know, being proud to show the qualifications and the certifications that you have. For me, that's one element of creating that passive social presence, that personal brand, but also how you behave and how you act. And I think, you know, we could probably talk about 2 or 3 quite practical things that salespeople can take away today and put into practice today. And that will actually have an impact on how many more people they will connect with, how many more people they will engage with within their target audience.
Yeah, I think just literally as you're saying this, and it's not something we, you know, we don't come to these shows with a script, but I think actually, how do you connect with people in terms of you as an individual, even when it's somebody that you know, has got to be now more omni-channel. And when I say omni-channel, it's got to be LinkedIn, it's got to be potentially WhatsApp, it's got to be a letter, it's got to be a phone call, because actually to move even people who know you in their very busy lives from one area to the next area as you move the relationship on, or you move a transaction on, or you move the overall partnership on, is taking about 10 times right now. And everyone's getting very, very busy. I know people who I've sat next to, they go, right, I want to get on and do this. And then you're still taking 3 or 4 weeks to move them. And it's because everyone's really busy. I mean, I look at my life and, you know, I coach my son's rugby team. I get about 20, 30 WhatsApps from that rugby club a day. And it's not, you know, social isn't just about how you do it as professionals. You've got to also be sympathetic to everyone's personal lives is now social. It's not even an email, it's that bombardment. But what I find fascinating, again, if you can bring up the slide, there's the next slide is brilliant. So the ISP did some work around trying to understand about the impact of people's personal brand. And this is a rear view mirror. And I love it because actually the reality for salespeople, it doesn't matter how likable you are, it doesn't matter how professional that you are. The only way right now of you actually evidencing that you've got that level of credibility and professionalism is actually somebody experiencing you. So it's past tense.
Yeah.
And it's like, I did what I said I was going to do. I followed through. I made those things happen. And therefore, the challenge is when you're trying to get new relationships and contacts or expand those contacts within an existing organization, that's your problem. You've got no way of projecting forward. Yes, you can get a reference from someone who's dealt with you.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're only ever going to be the good ones because you're never going to put a bad one up.
Yeah.
So again, there's that level of authenticity. And I think it's really fascinating because this is the slide that kind of we came out, which we didn't talk about last week.
No.
Which is this likability versus professionalism.
But
are you?
Before you go there, I just want to take a step back because we're talking about personal brand. I think the term social selling has been touched on, and you mentioned omni-channel. This is a constant objection almost that I get from people that I talk to about social selling and personal brand development when they start talking about message cadence. Oh, and it's not just LinkedIn, it needs to be WhatsApp, it needs to be these other channels. And I think the mistake that people are making is that what we're talking about is the strategy, it's the approach, it's the overall thing, regardless of what channel or platform you decide to use. I just wanted to make that point clear so that we're all on the same page. But yeah, onto your next point, unless you want to add anything.
No, that's fine. So this is the slide that Adam created, his thoughts created, and that's the point, is that salespeople here tend to be a lot more towards the likability end of the spectrum as opposed to the professionalism. Now, that is not saying they're not professional. That is a very important point,
right,
because the surveys that we did in the ISP to look at the impact of professional brand and personal brand on buyer engagement and connectivity, one question said that actually salespeople were really valued, but that's obviously when they're in the relationship. So people say, I know that person, I know Alex, and I do value what he brings. And that actually flies in the face of this. Like, most people want a seller-free engagement. No, they just want a really good, they want a world-class engagement, not a seller-free engagement. They're just not sure that they're going to get that. So it's easy, as Mike said on a series, put all the barriers up.
Yeah. So with this in mind, I've been running a study, some research myself. I've been analyzing the behavior of a range of different salespeople over the last 12 months, following this idea of social selling and personal brand development. And there are really two behaviors that stand out as the, let's say, the lead measures that have the greatest impact on engaging with one's audience and getting calls with prospective customers as well as existing customers. And so that is the human posts that they do on social media. So less about the professional corporate posts, which really talks to that likability factor. Who are they? Are they in a video? Is there a picture of them at an event or somewhere? That drives engagement up exponentially. And then there's the social networking, as I call it, which is the ability to insert yourself into networking conversations on social media, which, when done effectively, very much aligns to that professionalism side of things. So, what are the types of questions you can ask to increase credibility and encourage debate on topics that are being posted about on social media? And those two things actually increase the connection acceptance rates, the impression rates, the engagement rates, all of these things that I think salespeople aspire to achieve.
Well, it's Adam, it's back to you, sir. You talk about on social, you wouldn't do things on social that you wouldn't do in person. But actually, it's like, I wouldn't hang out with somebody who's really boring at a party. I'd just walk away. Wouldn't you? It's like, I don't want to be stuck in the corner with this individual. I'd rather be anywhere else. Adam's now going back into several parties that he's been at where he did get caught in the corner.
Yeah, you read my mind, mate. You read my mind. No, but I think that's really important. I think that, one of the things that we as sales professionals, one of the things that we often forget is that there is no shortage of insights and white papers and data and case studies and all of that stuff. So here are some massive changes that are shifts that are happening in your industry at the moment, and this is how these are likely to be impacting you. Well, if I've got access to write this article, so have you, so has Alex, so has everybody out there. So it's highly likely that these articles are going to be coming to the buyer from all sides. And I think the key thing here is, do you remember that report by John Jones and Dave Smith about this? No, of course you don't, because you've no idea who John Jones and Dave Smith are. And that's the point. If you don't know these people, there's no reason to tune into what it is that they're saying. Further to your point, it's just noise in the background.
Yep.
So that likability thing is absolutely crucial. Alex has lots of conversations with people that have dogs. I have lots of conversations with people that play the guitar. You have lots of conversations, Andy, with people that play rugby. And the reason is that it's common ground for us to have a debate and a conversation about where we are comfortable and we have some shared empathetic engagement with the person that we're talking to. And the beauty of this is that people have the opportunity to put themselves out there and share stuff that other people will be drawn towards. I don't like rugby, so I'm not going to talk to you. I don't like dogs, so I'm not going to talk to you. I do like cars, so I'm going to talk to him. And actually, that's perfectly okay. And from the basis of having the conversation about one of those things, you move on to saying, so what is it that you do at work? And then you have a conversation about that. And the conversation, the relationship develops in a very natural way. So, you said, Alex, about different cadences and things for when the messages should be sent out. The problem with all of that is that it's seller-centric, not buyer-centric. And that's the problem. And that's why we all switch on our email and we see 25 emails from people saying, just bouncing this to the top of your inbox. Like, are you still interested in this? I was never interested in this.
Yeah.
He's
I want
off.
to bring up some of the comments.
He's away again. And another thing, you people, if people are out there, do not put anything into Adam's email box and then try and bounce it to the top. That's a bad reaction for him.
Yeah. So nice comment from Phil. Hi, Phil. Actually, Adam and I met Phil at the expo last week.
Hi, Phil.
But Oliver makes a couple. He asks a good question here.
It's not my son, Oliver, is he? Not.
And makes a good point. Oliver Hiller. Hi, Oliver. Thanks for your comments. Guys, please keep the comments coming. How would you combine challenger sales methodology with being likable? On the theme of the sliding scale, constructing a challenger sell can immediately get a buyer's backup. How can we make this more approachable?
If I grab onto that, we've got 4.5 minutes to go, so I'll be really, really quick. The challenger sale, I think, if everybody had their time again, they wouldn't write it in the way that they actually had wrote it, Oliver. Even Neil Rackham said he probably wouldn't have done the forward in the way, because it created this perception that pretty much everybody had to be a challenger. And if you look at this one page where it looks about the different personas, and some of the things that I'm doing here at Cranfield are about, actually, you've got to be hugely adaptable. So I think if you took the challenger sale, you're barking up the wrong tree. You can only do that if you have a relationship. Sometimes you have to be a lone wolf on all of those things. Sometimes you have to be an order taker. And the reality is, if you then look at the challenger customer, I think that rewrites the perception of what you need to be. What you need to be is you need to be very ambidextrous and very agile as how you engage with multiple different stakeholders. And at times you can be very challenging, but you can't do that unless you've got a relationship. I mean, that's just, you just don't walk in there on day one and go, stop, you're wrong. You need, as Adam said, you need to build up.
That's the likability thing, isn't it? So, you've just said something, Andy, and I'll say, well, actually, I think you're completely wrong there. And then we have a debate about it. And we're able to do that because we have a relationship and a friendship and we know one another. And I think that if you haven't got that bit nailed down, if you haven't been able to form a human connection to the person that you're having the debate with or the conversation with or trying to sell something to, then all bets are off. You're just another person hawking your wares.
And to Oliver's follow-up, to Oliver's follow-up point, I think you're answering that right there, Adam. So, Oliver's saying, doesn't this all come back to demonstrating value to your client? It's very good to be liked, but unless I can be valuable, I'll never be engaged. I think the question here is, how do you define valuable? Because no longer is it, in my mind, your ability to demonstrate insight or put insight in front of the buyer. It's the things that Adam's talking about. Create that likability factor first so the audience engages and you earn the right to then share insight.
But I think that's a future episode, is define the word value, because some people will say value is just operational excellence. Other people will say value is insight and transformation. And other people will say, well, value is pricing innovation and collaboration and complete and utter new prospects and sorry, not prospects, but new prospects for bringing out something. I looked at one organization that said, actually, and let's look at that. If you look at logistics, you look at parcel delivery. I don't know if you've noticed that now, but virtually every parcel delivery person goes to their customers and says, we'll just handle the returns in the area as well. And that's one innovation, but there's now other organizations saying, how do I partner with people and go, I'll recycle things for you, I'll collect boxes for you, I'll even let you use our charging points. And so there is value, but you can't get there, and fundamentally, unless you're a likable individual, because people have got to trust you.
I think the thing about you said about operational excellence, Andy, and I think that one of the interesting things about this is that if you remember 25 years ago, JD Power, the people that survey all the cars, came to the conclusion that there's no such thing as a bad car anymore. You know, basically every car is fit for purpose. And the challenge that we have is that most of the stuff we're going to buy is fit for purpose. So whether you use Salesforce or you use Microsoft Dynamics or you use Sugar, other brands available, you know, by appointment, it doesn't mean that you've got necessarily any massive competitive advantage, because if you did have, every successful company would use Salesforce, say, and that isn't the case. The reality is that people make decisions for a whole host of reasons, and the first thing you have to do is build trust. And the only way that you can build trust is by realizing that you have something in common with this person and you like them and you want to hear what they have to say. And I think that too quickly, salespeople try to shoehorn in a, let me give you a case study. Let me give you a use case. I don't care, because I don't like you.
On that bombshell, it's time up. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you later in the day if you want to join into episode number 2. It's been great, and we'll see you again soon.
Yep.
Bye.
Thanks to the audience for all the questions. Bye all.